did not run a great campaign, and you're going to keep losing if you insist that she ran a great campaign.
I'm saying, look, there was no model for the campaign that she had.
Donna Brazile is struggling to accept the election loss, likely stuck in denial. As usual, she tried spinning the narrative, but M had no patience for her distortion of reality. He swiftly called out her hypocrisy in a brutal takedown. The confrontation was intense, exposing the contradictions in her stance. There's a lot to unpack here, so let's dive right into the details and break down what went down.
The big issue, right,
Right.
was immigration. And
Inflation, immigration.
those two are very big issues. And you asked Vice President Harris,
Right.
why did you let all these people in for the last 4 years? She did not have an answer. I still don't know the answer. They actually could, with an executive order, shut it down as they did earlier this year. So why did they not do it 3 years earlier? And I think people felt she did not respond to that in any way. She had no answer on inflation. And she also seemed to represent that whole woke zone that people are sick to death of. And I think those three.
Well, I agree with the first two, but I'm not going to get into this, oh, the people are too damn woke. That wasn't an issue.
Oh, Donna, whether you want to admit it or not, the election loss was tied to a major issue. People were completely exhausted by the endless woke messaging, the constant push for an ever-expanding list of genders, children being encouraged to transition without parental consent, and biological men pushing their way into women's sports. It was overwhelming. It felt like we were all trapped under the weight of the woke brigade, force-fed their ideology while being branded bigots for simply questioning it. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris hardly addressed the real crises that mattered to everyday Americans. Inflation, rising costs, the border chaos, complete silence. Instead, it was all about equity and lived experiences, as though that was the priority. Here's a newsflash. No one cares about your pronouns when they can't afford groceries. The American people saw the disconnect, and they made their voices heard loud and clear. So when I say Donna is losing it, it's not just me. Bill Maher sees it that way too. People notice the disregard for their struggles, and that's why the narrative is falling apart. It's time to wake up to reality.
I disagree with you.
I know, and that's why you're going to keep losing. I mean,
On July 21st at 1:41 p.m., when Joe Biden announced that he was going to step down, Kamala Harris had to step up. Now, what other Democrat could have stepped up in that period of time?
We're not arguing about that.
All right.
We're arguing the campaign she ran. They asked her what she would do differently. She said, I can't think of anything. That's terrible.
How do we trust a party that was telling us with a straight face that Joe Biden could be president?
I disagree with you, and that's why you're going to keep losing. No, man. Look, let's break it down. On July 21st at 1:41 p.m., Joe Biden announced he was stepping down, and Kamala Harris had to step up. But here's the key. What other Democrat could have stepped up in that moment? That's not what we're arguing. We're talking about the campaign she ran. When they asked her what she would have done differently, she said, I can't think of anything. That's terrible. How do you trust a party that, with a straight face, told us Joe Biden could be president for 4 more years without any issues? That's what the Democrats were selling us, a massive lie. We saw through it. Everyone saw through it. Did you see him this week? Could you imagine if we were just starting the next term with him? It's a reality check. The public knows it, and that's why the narrative is falling apart.
The work that we do diplomatically with the leadership of Israel is an ongoing pursuit around making clear our principles. Well, let's start with this. On this subject, the aid that we have given Israel allowed Israel to defend itself against 200 ballistic missiles that were just meant to attack the Israelis and the people of Israel. And I think that is the most recent example of why what we do to assist in their defense around military aid is important. And when we think about the threat that Hamas, Hezbollah presents, Iran, I think that it is without any question our imperative to do what we can to allow Israel to defend itself against those kinds of attacks. Now, the work that we do diplomatically with the leadership of Israel is an ongoing pursuit around making clear our principles, which include the need for humanitarian aid, the need for this war to end, the need for a deal to be done, which would release the hostages and create a ceasefire.
Another major reason the Democrats lost, and Bill Maher nailed this point perfectly, was the non-stop lying coming from the White House. It became painfully obvious that Joe Biden was not fit to lead the most powerful nation on earth. The man literally wandered off in the middle of speeches, shook hands with invisible people, and needed cue cards to remind him when to sit down. Yet people like Donna Brazile kept gaslighting us, insisting he could handle another term. His backup, even worse, was Kamala Harris, completely unprepared, with no plan or vision. When asked what she would do differently if given the chance to lead, she fumbled, dodged, and delivered another one of her infamous word salad monologues. No wonder voters saw right through the act. Kamala Harris wasn't just unprepared, she was painfully out of her depth. Every time she spoke, it was like watching a high schooler trying to BS their way through an oral exam. She'd awkwardly laugh, ramble in circles, and somehow say absolutely nothing in a full minute of talking. And let's not forget her infamous "time is a passing of time" moments, which left everyone wondering how she even made it this far. If this was the Democratic backup plan, it's no surprise voters ran for the hills. Her message resonated with no one, and the saddest part of all this, the media, the supposed watchdogs, were in on the charade. They buried stories and edited interviews to make Kamala Harris look good. Now, let me play you this clip from a recently leaked interview of Kamala Harris on CBS's 60 Minutes, where the then vice president performed so poorly they had to edit parts of it out to save her campaign. Watch what made it to air and what Kamala really said.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end. The work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region. And we're not going to stop doing that. We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
If you actually understood what Kamala Harris just said in the unedited version, please enlighten me because I'm completely lost. Seriously, was that even English? The point is, CBS had to edit her answer just to make it sound halfway coherent. They literally cut out her embarrassing rambling and stitched together the least ridiculous parts, hoping no one would notice. And this is who the woke mob was trying to force on us. A VP who needs a professional editing team just to sound competent. They told us she was a historic leader, a brilliant mind, but the second you remove the media safety net, it's just word salads and nervous laughter. No wonder the American people weren't buying it. It's almost as if they thought we wouldn't notice. But no amount of editing can hide the fact that Kamala Harris struggles to form a coherent thought under pressure. Imagine needing an entire PR team just to answer basic questions. How is that leadership? The media propped her up, and the woke crowd demanded we praise her. But when it came time to actually lead, she fell flat. If you think what you just saw was a fluke, here's another shocker from former VP Kamala Harris that exposes the same lack of preparedness. It's clear that the reality was far from the narrative they tried to sell us.
From CBS's perspective, Jack, they clearly made a calculus over here, and I'm not sure it was fully thought through or it's coming to fruition the way they thought, because I don't think they actually changed anybody's minds in terms of the coherence or succinctness of Kamala Harris as a communicator. She had been well established as somebody who was prone to rambling. This term word salad has become a phrase that everybody's familiar with her.
As we mentioned earlier, the media played a huge role in this deception, desperately trying to force Kamala Harris onto the American people. But guess what? It didn't work. No amount of media spin could convince voters that she was competent when every unedited clip told a different story. Instead of holding her accountable, they covered for her, edited her gaffes, and acted like everything was fine. The problem was, voters saw through the charade. No amount of media manipulation could hide the fact that Harris was unprepared, uninspiring, and completely out of her depth. The election results proved it. That's exactly what Bill Maher meant when he warned Donna Brazile that whitewashing Kamala Harris was a losing strategy. If the Democrats refuse to face reality, they'll keep losing elections. Maher ripped into the media for their blatant bias, calling out their shameless attempts to shield Harris from scrutiny. Their job was supposed to be reporting the truth, not running PR for an administration that couldn't even handle basic questions.
Was it appropriate to bury the Hunter Biden?
You're talking about the press doing that?
He's saying that's what they did, and that is what they did. They buried the Hunter Biden story before the election because they were like, we can't risk having the election thrown to Trump. We'll tell them after the election.
And we know for a fact that that's what they did?
Of course, you don't
but
follow
I'm
this.
saying you know for a fact that that's what they did. I don't know what they did.
I know, because you only watch MSNBC.
No, that's not true.
After Bill Maher's explosive obliteration of Kamala Harris and the media's attempts to shield her, social media was flooded with praise for the comedian. One person wrote, "I respect that Maher is willing to state the truth known by all honest Americans." Another chimed in, "Bill Maher peeking around the corner of reality slowly." Others tore into the Democrats for their massive charade. One commenter wrote, "Why not? If they can keep a dementia patient going as president for 4 years, why would anyone think they wouldn't script, edit, polish, etc. the interview to high heavens? She speaks like someone gave her a 500-word essay assignment, and she's trying to fill up the other 475 words." Another added, "If the Democrats want any chance of winning the next election, they need to do some serious house cleaning, and fast. That means taking a hard look at their failed policies, out-of-touch messaging, and yes, their leadership. If that house cleaning includes replacing Kamala Harris, so be it, because honestly, I think she's a political dead end. There is zero path forward with Harris at the helm. Voters have made it crystal clear they're tired of leaders who can't lead, and Harris has proven time and time again that she's all talk and no substance. If the Democrats keep pushing her as their future, they're in for another rude awakening. At some point, they'll have to decide, double down on failure or make real changes before it's too late." Here's Bill Maher's closing remarks.
The woman the media tried to tell us was a competent and visionary leader, an orator. Yes, it's Kamala time.
For those rights to be maintained, which means we have to be vigilant, and it's just the nature of it.
Oh, I'm not sure if that's Kamala time or happy hour. The form of Veep appears to be unburdened by sobriety.
The bottom line is the Democrats lost because they refused to face reality. They propped up a president who had lost touch with the world and a VP who couldn't form a coherent sentence without media intervention. Instead of addressing their issues, they doubled down on deception, gaslighting voters, editing interviews, and pretending Kamala Harris was a competent leader. But the people saw through it. Bill Maher was right. Whitewashing Harris is a losing strategy. If the Democrats don't clean house and rethink their leadership, they'll keep losing elections. America rejected the circus, and now it's up to them to decide what's next. And that, folks, signals the end of today's video. If you loved our commentary, hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Don't forget to share it with your anti-woke friends so we can fight wokeness together. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.